we crossed into China accidentally once. I mean, it was like at every turn, I was like, I'm going to die. This is like, and I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad I did it.
Well, that's the wild ride part of it. That's the what you remember about it the most. The ones that go smooth. I remember we were talking about the other day, I remember every successful hunt I've ever been on. But the ones that you remember the most are the ones that were tough in some way.
That's right.
This is Nick Hoffman with Nick's Wild Ride.
Yeah, man.
With Nick Hoffman.
That's me.
Yes.
So, Nick, tell everybody about your show, okay?
Oh, man. I think the best way to describe my show is, obviously at its core, it's a hunting show, right? But I lovingly refer to it as an Anthony Bourdain style hunting show. So, I'm the world's biggest Anthony Bourdain fan. For me, going on a hunting trip is about so much more than hunting and so much more than killing. It's about the people you meet and the places you go and the food you eat and the history that you uncover and the culture that we were just talking about, the great state of Oklahoma. If you scratch the surface just a little bit, it's amazing what you find in these places you go to. And so, sure, the reason I'm there is to hunt, but my show's all about the people and the food and the history and the culture of the place that I'm hunting.
I love it. And the reason why is because there are stories there. Mm-hmm. It's just culture. I mean, think about that. I mean, hunting takes us all around the world. We get to go for all different kinds of critters, but it's not just going for the critter. It's going for the experience.
Yep. And I say it all the time. Hunting to me is about so much more than killing. It really is, and that's really how I feel. So.
Well, when did you start hunting?
Ironically, so I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in a farming community in Minnesota, about an hour north of the Twin Cities, and nobody in my family hunted. But I was always one of those kids that felt called to hunt. I genuinely believe that some people are wired to be hunters and some people are wired to be gatherers. And I'm one of the ones that's was just wired to be a hunter. And my mom thought she spawned a gremlin. She didn't know what the heck was going on. And all my buddies hunted, and growing up and everything. But looking back now, 8, 9 years old, I would, if I had a chance, I would just go into the woods and I would just follow tracks and try and sneak up on deer. And I didn't realize, but that I was hunting, And so it was a neighbor when I was about 12 years old. And I was buying Field and Stream magazines and stuff with my hunting magazines and hunting videos and stuff with my allowance. And we had a neighbor named Jim Zawistowski, and he had a couple of mule deer and a couple of whitetails on his wall, and I'd always ask about them. So when I was 12, and you can start deer hunting when you're 12 in Minnesota, especially back then. I'm not sure if it's still the same. And he took me hunting with a muzzleloader for a Kentucky long rifle, patching loose powder and patching grease patch and ball. And man, my life is measured in before and after that moment, Yeah. So now it's a big passion of mine to make sure that I'm talking to and trying to touch those kids that were like me, that want to do it but don't know how to start.
See, and that's the thing. We talked about it. We just
20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean that is a challenge that I think that people that want to hunt, that don't come from hunting families, it's a challenge out there.
Yep.
How do they get started? I mean, you had that guy take you on
Absolutely.
your first hunt. And you got to have somebody take you.
And then it doesn't stop there. I go and speak at these SCI chapter banquets in the various places all the time, and I tell my story, right? But I talk about mentorship because to me, mentorship, there's mentorship and there's a helper. A helper is like a guy who takes you out the first time. But then after that, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Mentorship is a lifelong, or at least a long term. In my definition of it, a long term process to help somebody get into it. Because you can take somebody hunting the first time, but that's only the first step. Because then, what do we buy? Where do I go? Who do I do it with? What kind of gear do I need?
Why do I do this?
Yeah,
there's so many questions.
It's hard.
It is a process.
That's right.
And it's and really, as a hunter, we never stop learning.
No.
Think about that. I mean, you never stop learning.
And that's the definition of mentorship to me. You need, and I have a few mentors in my hunting life, and they come and go. But there's a couple of them that I've had since almost day one. Mm-hmm. And I still call them every once in a while and be like, "Hey, I'm having trouble tracking down this deer," or I can't seem to figure this out, or what would what caliber would you use here? These are lifelong lifelong mentors, you know, and I think that's a big part of it.
But it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the initial interest was right from you. You had nobody like bringing you out and getting, you got
absolutely.
interested in it because you just like something inside you.
There was something inside me that wanted to do it. And, you know, it's funny. I just got back from almost a month in Africa, and I took my daughter and my wife to Namibia for 2 weeks. And my daughter's a great example of the same thing, because I never figured in a million years she'd want to hunt. She just wasn't wired. She was wired to be a gatherer. I was sure of it.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, all of a sudden, she just started saying, "Hey, will you take me deer hunting?" And I said, "Honey, you don't need to do that."
How old
for
is
me.
she?
14. And she's like, no, I want to. I've always kind of wanted to. And I said, "What do you mean you've always wanted to?" She said, "Yeah, I just wasn't ready."
Wow.
And that just gave me goosebumps just saying it. And I was like, okay, well, let's go. So we went and shot a deer this year, and now she took a couple animals in Africa, and now suddenly I'm getting to share that with her. And it turns out that she was wired to be a hunter all along. She just it came when it was supposed to happen, you know. And I had this conversation with somebody here that's here yesterday. Last night we were having a beer and talking about it, and they said, you know, I think I made the opposite mistake with my kids. I think I tried to force them into hunting because I wanted them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that I didn't, because now that she's doing it, she's into it because I didn't force her into it, you know. And I think that's really the opposite of it. Like, you know, I always wanted her to, and boy, she had somebody to take her all the way along, but I never even asked.
I think that
I waited for her to come.
Thank you for sharing that story, because to me that gives me a different perspective upon many of the people I talk to, because it always intrigues me why people started hunting, okay, and who they learned, who was their mentor, okay. But a lot of people started hunting later in life, and maybe because, and the reason I ask them, what happened? Now I got it. It wasn't time yet.
Yeah,
that was a nice way to put it. I like that.
I like that.
And it floored me when she said it like that. You know, I wasn't ready. You know, and she always was there in hunting camp with me. You know, she'd see deer, and I'd bring home deer in the back of the truck, or a turkey. We obviously ate. I mean, almost every meal's got some sort of wild game in our house. You know, so she was around it. She was exposed to it, and that was my goal, was just to make sure that she understood hunting and that she appreciated and respected it. That was enough for me.
Okay, so tell everybody, I want to hear about your show.
Yeah.
Okay, you kind of described it. Where does it run? How long you been doing it?
Yeah.
Tell what species do you do? Methods, blah blah blah.
Well, I think the important thing is to back up and tell you where I come from. So I'm a country music artist and fiddle player by trade, right? So I've been lucky enough to have a really amazing music career, and through the music career, I started meeting all these quote unquote hunting celebrities, people that, you know, had shows on TV that I watched and I was a fan of. I meet them backstage at shows, you know, and then a few of them invited me to come out and hunt with them, and then I found myself a guest on one of those shows, and I started meeting people in the hunting industry through that, you know, as being a guest on other people's shows. Never in a million years would I have ever. I would have bet 10 years ago, I would have bet everything I owned against me having my own hunting show. That was not in the cards. And, but it was through meeting these people in the industry, I started, somehow or another, like too many beers over a fire one night, you know, and a producer friend of mine and I got to talking about hunting shows, and I said, you know, I think it'd be really cool to see like an Anthony Bourdain style hunting show, because I love Anthony Bourdain. You know, he goes out and he experiences the culture and the food and the history of the people that the places that he goes, and my buddy goes, "That's actually a pretty good idea," and I said, "Well, you know, maybe we should like produce that show, and we'll find a host, and we'll pitch it to the Outdoor Channel." That was the idea, and then I talked to Dave Watson about it. And Dave was like, "Oh, that's a great idea. You should do it. And it should be Nick's Wild Ride," he said. You know, and oh, whatever, Dave, that ain't gonna work, you know. And so we did. We filmed a pilot for the show, and the idea was, if they liked it, maybe we just replace me as the host. It was like proof of concept, and we pitched it to the Outdoor Channel, and they were like, "Yeah, we love this, but you have to be the host." And ironically, I didn't have time for it. I had a band called The Farm, and we had hits on the radio at the time, and all of a sudden the band broke up. Suddenly I had a lot more time on my hands. And so we filmed the first season, and it was one of the best rated new shows that they'd had in years. And all of a sudden I was just having a blast and headlong into it. And here I am traveling all over the world, systematically checking off my bucket list, So now we're about to start filming the 10th season.
Wow.
And that just blows my mind, and just, speaking to somebody like you, that's not that many years, but for me, I just never saw this coming, and I think that's why it's so much fun, is because it truly is organic. If you watch my show, you're just watching a dude, literally just out there living life to the fullest. I mean, it's super authentic because all you're doing is watching me just checking off, like I said, systematically checking off my bucket list, and learning about history and culture and food, which is just my passion.
And people relate to that nowadays.
I love it. I'm having a blast.
And it's super cool to have you here because we work with SCI, both of us, the High Road and Nick's Wild Ride, and I think we started working with them at the same time. So I've heard your name for like the past 4 years, seen your face. So to have you here now it's pretty cool.
I appreciate it. And I've been a life member for a long time, and I love this organization. I love this club, and to be here for this grand opening is really, really fun, and because it's like a family reunion.
We're here in San Antonio, Texas. This is the national headquarters. He just moved here, and it's a grand opening day today, and they've just had a bunch of dignitaries get up and speak and welcome everybody. And people from all over the country are here, and so it's an opportunity for us to sit down and do the podcast, and we really appreciate you taking the time. But you're talking about you checking stuff off your bucket list. Tell us what you checked off.
Oh man, I mean, so like I said, the show is about so much more than hunting and killing, right? So I mean, I've not only gotten to, take pushing 120 species all over the world. I mean, literally all over the world, but I've also got to do some really incredible stuff along the way. I mean, I've flown in an F-18 with the Blue Angels. I have, and threw up 3 times when I did it. I have, I've gotten to, dive down to wrecks in the Bahamas. And so I've gone up and I've gone down. I've gotten to, go and eat pickled seal intestine in Alaska and strange foods in Mongolia and Kyrgyzstan and places like that. I could go on and on. I mean, so yeah, the hunting is the reason I'm there, but I think my favorite part about these adventures and these bucket list things have been the people and the I've met and the things I've done, and in some cases the food I've eaten. Because usually I'm eating something weird that is actually pretty horrible.
You're right.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you, see, because to me, I love the going to a new place and experiencing culture. Have you ever been to Spain?
Absolutely.
Have you done the Monteria? Have you done a hunt called the Monteria?
Oh, where?
The driven hunt.
No, I have not, and I would love to.
Holy smokes, you'd love it.
And so culturally rich.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, and what was so cool for us, we're up on top of these mountains. I mean, literally, the Mediterranean Sea is right there. Okay, there was snow on the mountain. And when we're talking about history and the land, okay? We're the Christians and the Muslims came across the Mediterranean Sea. They were fighting right where we were
so
hundreds of years, 1,000 years ago. Yeah. And then you get to go into Madrid and you get to see the buildings that are hundreds, 500, 600 years old.
Oh, thousands.
I mean, it's like you can't believe it.
Built on top of the buildings that were thousands of years before that.
Yes.
It's crazy.
And it's so cool to be able to go. And I think, I would love to just do a show on the travel because it is so neat. And the culture, the hunting is different. I mean, all these different places we go, hunting is different. I mean, you go to, hunting in Texas for deer is different than hunting in Missouri for deer, different in Montana. I mean, and so when hunting in Spain with a driven hunt, we tell people, literally, they let 200 dogs go. They hunt 3 days a year on these pieces of property. 3 days. That's it. It's not trophy hunting. You're just going in there, taking the animals that need to be taken, and getting them out. But and you only hunt for a few hours every day. Yeah. That's it. Not there all day long like we do whitetail hunting or whatever. It was just a whole experience.
It is, and I think that's the beauty that I've found in it. Is the more places I go, every place is different, even within Spain, like you said, even within the United States, from state to state to state. And all you have to do is be open to that. Open your eyes, and I always say, scratch the surface just a little bit, and you'll be surprised what you find. If you're open to how much culture's around us, it presents itself. It's like one of those pictures. If you stare at it long enough, you see another picture in a picture. That's what I feel like this wide world we live in. We live with our blinders, and nowadays with these phones that we have in our hands, we don't take time to just see what's around us.
I call it the big eye. I want to see it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to know who that guy is and why do you do this? And there's so much to learn. Like Namibia. I mean, Namibia is completely different than Zimbabwe.
Absolutely.
I mean, you were in Zimbabwe. I mean, it's completely different. You know, I mean, it's in the same continent, but when somebody says, well, I went to Africa. Well, where'd you go?
Yeah. Vastly.
Okay. It's like, I went to the United States. Where'd you go? Rhode Island?
Yep.
California? I mean, where'd you go?
You meet somebody overseas and they say, I've been in the United States, and they say they've been in New York City.
Oh,
and I say, you have not been to you've been to the United States, but that's not representative of the rest of the United States. And I think that's the other thing that there's a bit of me that has this wanderlust that drives this passion of travel and all these things. But it's also a little bit overwhelming because you go to Spain and you realize that you've just seen a sliver of Spain, and you're going to have to come back. And again and again and again. I've been over there 4 or 5 times now. Same with Africa. Like your first safari, you're not even scratching the surface.
No.
You're just trying to figure out how it all works. You know, I remember I had just like everybody, I had no interest in hunting in Africa, right? You know, Midwestern kid who deer in Turkey, right? And I went over there first time, and somebody told me, they said, you're going to be planning your second trip back on your second day.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, whatever. Sure as the day is long, I'm sitting around the fire on that second day going, so if I came back, what would we do? And I've found that to be the case everywhere I go. It's you scratch the surface, and it's like you're all you're doing is just picking off a piece and opening up something underneath.
You got to do more.
You have to.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of the killing. It's about all the other stuff that's around it. And man, do I love it.
So where's I tell people, have you ever gone on a hunt that you wanted to go on a long, long time, and you're doing it and think, if somebody had to pay me money, they don't have enough money to pay me to do this again. Have you ever done one of them?
Uh-huh.
Tell me about it.
Absolutely. I've done a couple of them that I'm glad I did. And
when it's over, it's like I survived.
I really enjoy all of the backcountry mountain hunting, right? Like I love it, but man, is it miserable when you're doing it.
Oh,
I mean, it really is. And me going to Kurdistan for a Marco Polo sheep was all at once the coolest thing I've ever done, and I'm really glad I did it.
You'll never do it again.
And I look, I wouldn't say never. Like if you said, hey man, here's a free Marco Polo hunt, I'd do it. But I feel like I opened that room, I walked into it, I did what I needed to do, and I walked out and I closed the door, and I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like because I had altitude sickness and food poisoning at the same time. That's after 30 some hours of driving in a Forerunner, with motion sickness on top of that, with a guy that was falling asleep at the wheel. We crossed into China accidentally once. I mean, it was like at every turn I was like, I'm gonna die. This is like, and I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad I did it.
Well, that's the wild ride part of it. That's what you remember about it the most. The ones that go smooth. I remember we were talking about the other day. I remember every successful hunt I've ever been on. Mm-hmm. But the ones that you remember the most are the ones that were tough in some way.
That's right. And I feel I was just talking about, and I'm not going to name names, but I had a particular hunt in Africa that was with an outfitter that was this guy, it was awful. Everything about it was awful. And I finally had the outfitted hunt that you hear about that I had never had, which was just a nightmare.
What did you leave?
I didn't. And I managed to get the hunt and the episode done. And when you watch the episode, you would never know.
See,
you know what I mean?
I've done that too.
But I wanted to leave. And a couple of times I almost did, but I stuck it out, and I'm glad I did. I ended up having a great time, and I met a couple people on that hunt that have become lifelong friends.
See, I'll tell you this. I've had that happen. I mean, back years ago when I first started, I had that happen. And it's like, man, I spent all this time and all this money to get here. I've got to come back with something. But then all of a sudden I felt this almost a guilt, because it's like they're not seeing the other part. They're not seeing the bad part.
That's right.
I mean, we're showing the good part. They don't see the bad part. Okay. And all of a sudden I got to the point that when all of a sudden I started I mean, and I think you do this long enough, you go with enough people, you're going to have a bad trip every now and then.
Yep.
And I've got to the point now, it's like, pack your stuff, we're leaving.
Yeah.
Okay. Because life is too short. You know, we can make choices in what we want to do. And I want to go to great places and have a great time. And I want to encourage more people to go and do that.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to go have a bad time.
That's exactly it. And we are, you know, we have these shows and there are people that watch my show that are following in my footsteps every trip I do.
Yes.
I mean,
responsibility.
and there's a handful of them. There's like 6 or 7 guys, and in a couple of cases, their wives that are doing that. Literally, they just plan their trip around they did plan their next season around my season. They just call every place and say, I'm in. And I know who those guys are. And when it came to this one episode, I called them and said, don't do that one.
Right.
And I also vowed that I'll never do that again. I'm never gonna. I made the lemons out of lemonade there. You know what I mean, or lemonade out of lemons. But I probably shouldn't have presented it like that. I probably should as well.
Well, see, and the thing is, we learn from all that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that you know, we've been doing it long enough. It's like we've been doing it long enough that when you get in a camp where you kind of smell a rat.
Oh yeah.
There's a rat there. Okay. And it's like when you go to a gun range, if you're a rifle shooter and you go to a rifle range and you look down there, you can tell the guy who doesn't know what he's doing. You just tell him, you look at him, he doesn't know what he's doing. And it's not, it's just, once you've done it as much as we've done it, all of a sudden you start picking up on these little things. Okay. And so, I tell people, if you're planning one of these adventures, okay, wherever you're going to go hunt, it's always an adventure. But if you're going to go on something, you spend a lot of time, a lot of money to go on it. Check references.
That's what I was just going to say
Yeah.
too. I literally ever since that one hunt, and the way I got into that hunt wasn't how I'd normally do it anyway, and then I ended up getting bit by it. I literally just don't go on a hunt unless somebody that I know and I trust has either done it themselves or I can speak to people that I know. It's not even, references are important, but like, man, the best word of mouth is somebody that you know and trust.
Yeah. That's the reason why.
And we all have plenty of friends that have been around and done it.
But go to the SCI convention, come to Nashville.
Yep.
There are so many people in that room, and you will talk one-on-one with the outfitter, with the guides. You will find out. I mean, and there'll be customers are there, so that come up while you're talking to them in the booth, and you start talking to the customer. Hey, how'd you do? Then it was wonderful. Whatever, you can find out everything because you're right there, with the right people, and you're one-on-one with them.
And you literally at any of these things, all these outfitters. A good outfitter, like you said, will give references, right? But naturally, they're going to probably give you a reference of somebody that had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take long in this day and age with the Google machine
to get out
to find whether or not somebody, because usually people don't post glowing reviews. It's like if you go on Yelp, it's usually just a bunch of complaints. People take time to talk about the bad stuff.
Yes.
They usually don't take time to find about the good stuff. And I found that to be true. Like, it doesn't take long. You can Google somebody and you can find out. It's the resources are there to vet out those people ahead of time. And ever since I started doing that, I haven't had a really bad hunt since.
And make sure I'd take it a step further. Make sure it's somebody that's been there recently.
That's
I'm not going to mention the outfitter, but Keith had been going with this outfitter for years, and they had the best relationship. He had the best time, made the best shows. This guy was phenomenal. And then we go out there, and we had a very poor trip. You talk about people falling in your footsteps.
Yep.
We go to fly out of this place in a little prop plane. The plane that is coming to pick us up brings in a gentleman.
Now, hold on a minute. Was he left out? We had a horrible trip.
Oh, it was terrible.
It wasn't bad. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything that could go wrong went wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Times 10.
And so we could not wait for the plane came, and finally the plane comes, and the guy gets off the plane. And he looks at me, he says, "I'm here because of you." And I want to say, "I'm sorry." Okay, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't and so I'm not promoting that guy anymore.
Yeah.
There's no way. I mean, and so
And
I
thank
would
God he got
encourage-
his animal, for the record.
Yeah,
but
he did get his
yeah,
animal.
We
but
did not.
We didn't. But the thing is, I tell people, ask for references, and you're going to get positive people.
Yep.
But ask for somebody who didn't get an animal and find out why.
That's kind of what I was getting at too. It's like I think it's important to, and I think that's a really good way for outfitters to. Really good ones aren't afraid of that. You know, they'll give you a reference, and you can ask for them. Hey, give me a reference of somebody that didn't shoot one.
Yeah.
If they're confident and they know their stuff, they're not afraid of that, because a good outfitter, not everybody's going to be successful, but a good outfitter is always going to give everything they got to make sure that to try and make sure you.
A good outfitter controls everything he can control.
That's right.
Okay, and then when you go to a place and the vehicles are not maintained, and the lodge is dirty, and the food is bad, and the guides are drunk, and the you keep going, it's like, wait a minute, that outfitter's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, I wound up when I took my son, he was 12 years old. We went up on a black bear hunt up in Canada, and the Indian guide that was up there got drunk and died.
Oh, jeez.
He died.
Oh no.
Okay, yeah. It's like, I mean, it's like,
remember
he
the
died.
story.
I hate to laugh, but that's
No, but it's
He
just
died.
that's
He-
crazy.
It's the
It's
craziness.
like, the outfitter, I said, where's Greg? Oh, he died.
Last
What?
night,
He drank and drank until he died.
While you were there.
Well, yes, while we were there. Yeah, it's like they fly a plane in and take him. Greg's gone. He's dead.
Greg.
Okay, and so that's the reason why it's like, no, we didn't recommend that outfit to anybody.
You know, but it's not to. I think it's important to. We're talking about these rare scenarios for the people that are listening and thinking about spending their hard-earned money on an outfitted hunt. There are so many good ones out there, and it doesn't take. It's not hard to find them. Just do a little research is all we're saying. But I would certainly never not encourage people to go and travel to hunt, because if you enjoy hunting and you're enjoying doing what you do, it opens a Pandora's box of just wonderful experience to travel to hunt, and I love it more than anything.
So tell everybody how much different is doing a TV show than hunting without a camera.
It's a great question, and to answer that question is going to make it sound as if I'm going to be complaining about how great my life is. Because for me to complain about having a TV show and getting to go and do these amazing hunts isn't.
It's not complaining.
It's not
just
complaining.
like
it's
free
telling
out.
them
But it absolutely is different, to the point where now in 10 seasons, last year I told my wife, I said, I'm going to start taking at least 2 hunts a year with no camera, because I realized that I hadn't hunted without a camera in years, and I got to realizing the reason I noticed it was because I went and shot some does on our farm with my buddy, and it was the first time that I had shot something and walked up on it within 2 minutes, in as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh, this is what it used to be like, because when you're filming, you got so much filming to do. Once you shoot something, the work, that's when the work begins.
That's when it starts.
And people, and that's okay, because we're making entertainment and we're making stuff that people want to watch. And that's where the work comes in. And the good ones take time to film the good stuff, but man, I miss walking up on shooting something and being like, well, that one's laying there, let's go. You know what I mean? And I miss that a lot.
I've done 2 hunts
I was just going to say.
in decades that were not filmed.
Yep.
2. And on both times, like the last one was an antelope hunt, and I was in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. It's like I went out there by myself, and I saw $100 that day. I mean, it was like, man, we should.
And you wish that you were filming.
Yeah, I wish I was filming.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I picked out a really stud out there, and it's like he's 350 yards. It's like I'm on him. The guide goes, "You think you can get him?" Yeah, I can get him. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around like, where's the camera? I mean,
Are you on him?
Yeah, are you on him? And it's like, he said, why don't you shoot? And I'm thinking, okay, boom. And he tips over, and I'm thinking, wow. And we just walk right up to him.
Yeah.
I thought I didn't have to worry about any blood and the tongue and the sun and the wind and all the things that we have to consider when we're doing this. And it's like, wow. I mean, it's not to complain about what we do.
It's not.
It's not complaining.
It just is different.
It's just different.
And I couldn't agree more. So I told you I took my daughter and my wife to Africa. I was just 2 weeks ago, and I got to hunt 2 animals there with my daughter, no camera. It was magical, you know. And then while the girls were deciding they want to stay in camp a couple of days, I snuck out in the Caprivi and shot a red lechwe, a beautiful red lechwe that I would have given anything to have on camera because the hunt just came together perfectly in this gorgeous animal. And then I shot a steenbuck that is one of the either number 1 or number 2 all time in Namibia.
Really?
And it's going to be way up there in the SCI record books. It's the biggest one they've ever seen there, and it's not on camera, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I would love for y'all to see it because it's an incredible animal, but man, I got that memory, just me and my PH and me and my buddy. He was my buddy, you know, and it was a magical moment that it would have been different if the camera had been there. It wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have felt the same, and I can see it and feel it and taste it differently as I'm talking about it than I would if I had had the camera. So that's my point, is that I have now made it a point to at least a couple of hunts a year, and there's been every one of them I get done with them and wish, man, it would have been nice to have that on film, but man, have I had a great time. And I think it's a catch-22. The filming is a blessing and a curse, isn't it?
I know that Johnny says that the camera saved lots of animals' lives.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah.
And for me, like, it's different when you do it without the camera in a good way.
Yeah.
But there is also, I know for a fact that when you shot that antelope, same thing happens to me when I go up to our family ranch in Missouri and shoot a deer, is like when you've done it like that, you kind of miss that element of it. Like that's part of what you live for as well.
We're able to share that experience through the video.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why it's so critical for us to get great footage, not just good, but great footage of the whole event, of the whole process, and including the kill. Okay, and including the recovery, because that's the way we pay respect to the hunt and to the animal, to the outfitter and the viewer and everybody else. And so it's for that reason that, let's say, like Johnny says, the camera saved lots of animals' lives.
It sure has, and it's also, on the flip side, it's also, the camera has turned a lot of people on to hunting that otherwise wouldn't have seen it, and it has introduced animals that people never even knew existed until they saw it on camera and saw it filmed. And so it's I considered it an honor to be able to bring these stories and these and like you said, respect these animals and bring them into people's homes and into their living rooms. I mean, what an honor. I mean, what a blessing to be able to do this for a living. I mean, look, this is here's my life. I play music and hunt for a living. I mean,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, I still got to pinch myself every once in a while and be like, is this really my life? You know
I have to say, you know what? I don't want to tell anybody, but I get paid to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I'd do this if I wasn't getting paid.
Yeah, that's right. When are they going to figure out that I'd do this if I wasn't getting paid?
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, what a cool thing. And it's really fun for me too. Like I said, I never set out to be this, quote unquote hunting celebrity, or whatever you want to call it, this guy, this TV host. So it's really fun for me too, like sitting here with people like you who I've watched, for a long time and I've enjoyed. I'm like hanging out and rubbing elbows with all these people that I've looked up to my whole life, and suddenly, they're my buddies, and that's really fun for me. You know what I mean? I go to these hunting shows and stuff like that, and I'm hanging out with these people that I've read their books and watched their shows for my whole life, and it's like, hey, I keep waiting for them to figure out that I feel like an imposter. You know what I mean? Like I'm not, you know that like you're way cooler than I am, right? Like, I love it. It's been so much fun.
There's a common thread, I call it, amongst hunters. We all, I mean, there's this common thread that brings us all together. However you hunt, wherever you hunt, it doesn't matter. If you put people in a room that didn't even know each other, you're going to gravitate, I think, to the hunter. If there's another hunter in the room, you have something in common. Okay? You have something in common with them. That's the reason why at an event like this, you see all these people gathered. Or you go to Nashville and you see all those people gathered at the annual convention. There's that common thread that puts us all together.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's another reason I love to travel to hunt. There's been very few hunts that I've ever been on that I haven't met at least one person that I'm at least in touch with at least a couple times a year.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
You know, I've got friends all over the world now that I never would have had, and it's that common thread. You know, we probably don't have much else to talk about, you know, in most cases, other than hunting.
Hunting is magical, and that it brings people together that would never know each other otherwise.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about that too is that, like, out here today at this SCI event that we're at, I've run into a bunch of people that I know and a few that I hadn't. Nobody right off the bat goes, "Hey, what have you been killing?" It's not about the killing. You know, they go, "What have you been up to? Where you been? What you been doing?" You know, and tell me about, hey, they don't say, "Tell me about what you killed in Africa." They say, "Tell me about your hunt."
Yeah.
And tell me about your hunt is that's a broad net to cast, which means where'd you go? Who'd you meet? What'd you eat? What'd you see? How long did it take to get there? And then maybe you pull out your phone and show them a picture. But you don't start with the picture usually.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's tell me about your hunt. And it's kind of like the word safari is a misnomer that immediately people imply to Africa, but it just means a journey. You know, it literally, every hunt we go on and every trip we do, it's a safari in its own way. And safari is about so much more than killing. Yeah. Hunting's about so much more than killing. It's about getting out there and doing it, you know, and I love it.
So do you bow hunt and gun hunt?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You do it all.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, bow hunting didn't come to me till I was in my 20s. Honestly, there was a pretty big gap in my hunting career from the time that I ran away from home to play music when I was 16. That's a whole nother story. and from the time I left home until I really started hunting hardcore again there was about almost a 10-year gap in there. Now, I would go hunting every once in a while. I'd fish a lot. I'd do some different stuff. I'd duck hunt every year. But my big game career didn't start in earnest again until I was in my early 20s. And my brother-in-law, I shot a bow. Again, I shot a bow in high school, but when I got his bow in the backyard, and it was a Matthews Outback, I remember, and I shot that bow, and it was like a light bulb went off. I immediately went and got a bow, and I mean it's as if I was a big, huge, heavy rock on a steep hill, and there was just one little tiny pebble that was keeping it from going downhill. That first arrow just removed that thing, and I was a boulder headed downhill.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is, and it was like the floodgates opened up again. So bow hunting, really, I credit with getting me. The disease was in, you know, I got the shot in the arm from the bow.
But you're still down to pick up a rifle.
Oh yeah, in fact, my show, because of the hunts I do too, you know, it's like one of my title sponsors, my title sponsor for many years, up until last year, has been a gun company. So I rifle hunt probably 90% of the things on the show, and that's partly because of sponsors, but also really because of the places I'm going and the things I'm doing. I mean, yeah, you can kill a Marco Polo with a bow, but
you better spend a long time on that.
Yeah.
See, that's another thing about doing TV, how long it takes us.
Yeah.
It's just not roll in there and get it done and roll out. But I mean, we have to get it done.
That's right. And then for my show, then it's at least another week of filming once I'm done. Once I
all the
I
other
get done
stuff.
killing. So that's, you know, I'm kind of jealous of some of the hunting shows that, man, once they kill, they may get another day of filming and then they roll up and go home. It's like, I got a lot of work to do still, because then I got to go out and do all the lifestyle stuff and all the different stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, because that's some of my favorite memories of all that stuff. But it's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
And it's not getting any cheaper. You know what I mean?
No.
It's you know, it's a lot of work, but sure is a lot of fun.
So how many camera guys you take with you?
One usually. I'd love to have more, but for most of these mountain hunts, it's really hard to go up and do anything productive with more than one camera guy. And that finding the right guy that can do it all, run audio and do everything, and we've got a system. Once you get in a groove with the right cameraman, as you know, it's like, you know, we roll in and do it. And people don't even realize how much we're doing now, because we make it look so easy.
I call it dancing.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yep.
You learn what they're doing. They learn what you're doing. You learn how to move together. And pretty soon, I mean, Johnny and I have been dancing for 7 years. And it's like, you know, but you got to find that person that you dance with.
Yeah, and it takes a talented person on both sides, in front and behind the camera, and then a team of people. You know, it's not people see the guy on camera and think that that's who's making the show, but man, you're
It's
only
a team.
you're only as good as the people that surround you, and it really is. I've got an amazing team of people that work around me. I know you do too, and I couldn't do it without them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite thing to hunt?
Oh man, when it's all said and done, I love hunting whitetails. There's no doubt, but for me, it's anything to do with a dog. So I think when it's all said and done, and I'm done chasing fur all over the world, in my semi-retirement, I want to be chasing birds with a dog.
Really?
Yeah. I love hunting with a dog more than just about anything, and I think that's what I'll end up. I can see myself in retirement just chasing pheasants and quail and various things like that, and then of course trying to shoot one big buck a year. I'd be happy with that.
You have bird dogs of your own?
Yeah,
you do.
Yeah.
How many you got?
I've got a English cocker and a lab.
Oh, those little cockers.
Yeah.
Are awesome.
He's the coolest the coolest dude. He's so much fun.
I mean, people think they're lap dogs, but they can be a lap dog.
Oh yeah, he's a lap
they're
dog.
awesome.
How big are they?
Yeah, he's about like that.
Were they walking them around the SCI show this past year?
Yeah, they had some.
Those were the cutest, coolest looking dogs.
My cocker is batshit crazy. I'm talking that he is nuts, and you can't tire him out. But then, like you said, he'll turn into a couch dog, and he just looks at you like if he could crawl into your mouth and live in your belly, he would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're
the most loyal.
Oh, unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was on the SCI show floor, and one just came up to me and didn't know me at all. Came up to me and got right between my legs and stood there like.
And they're good hunters. Yeah. They're good hunters.
Yeah,
They've got great noses. They're good retrievers. They're really good hunters.
Yeah. I've heard legitimate firsthand stories of those cockers also have no sense of self-preservation. So like they will just dive into a bush and not worry about themselves at all. Like my lab will pick through, he'd try and find the right way in where you can maybe not get scratched up, you know what I mean? But that cocker, I've heard firsthand stories of people saying that their cockers have jumped off of cliffs following a quail off a cliff. Just and away they go.
They have no. They're almost like they're like a Jack Russell, but they're not as crazy as most Jack Russells that I've been around.
Mine is,
but they're more lovable than a Jack Russell.
Yeah,
I mean Jack Russell
kind of mean.
But
Jack Russell just leave me alone.
Yeah, with all that said, though, on the big game side of things, obviously whitetails were my first love. But I don't know if there's anything. I got asked this. My PH in Africa this week asked me this. I don't think there's anything more exciting, in my opinion, than when it's really, really happening. Well, archery elk with a bow is probably about as good,
very
about
common
as good
one.
as it gets.
Very common.
It's like I just don't know if there's anything more exciting. I don't think there is. I mean, and I've gotten the chance to go and do most of it all over the world. Man, when it's really happening and they're really screaming and they're pissed off and they're coming, there's nothing like
slinging,
it. Nothing
nostrils
like
flared, the eyes back like that, and it was like they come in like I could say it's like the fire-breathing dragon. They come in and I mean they mean business.
Absolutely. I think the other thing for me is I have become addicted to hunting with an old school double in Africa for buffalo. I'm going back in a month to do it.
What caliber?
470 Nitro Express is my double, and I absolutely am addicted to that old school double hunting for
Get a scope on it or no?
Nope. Open
iron
sights.
sights.
Yeah,
that's
and
the way
it's like
to do it.
I think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah,
and
I agree with
you.
that.
That's a whole nother level of stuff that when I got in, like I talked about the shot in the arm, when I got injected with that disease, man, it's about all I think about, to be honest. Is I'm in love with Africa in every way, shape, and form, and there's just not enough safari for me. I was just there for a month and can't wait to go back.
We were over there for 3 weeks and then found out they canceled our flight, and they said it was going to take 30 days for us to get out for the next flight. I said, I can't afford to stay.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Oh man, as it gets expensive so fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, but I love it. So that's to answer your question. I mean, I think I love hunting those buffalo with a double. I love archery elk, but man, hunting with a dog. There's something about it.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I want to talk briefly about musicians that you play with, whatever you're around. Do a lot of them hunt?
There's a lot more in country music than you might think that hunt. And some of them that are very open about it, but a lot of them that aren't. There's some of them that just don't want to admit that they hunt. But you got guys like Luke Bryan, obviously, Jason Aldean, Gary LaVox from Rascal Flats. There's a whole crop of new guys coming up, new country artists that are, that are on the radio now that I mean, I'd say 75% of them are at least deer hunters, Yeah. And I have a radio show that I do on Apple Music where I talk to all these country artists, and you'd be surprised though how many of them don't want to tell people they hunt. And that's because unfortunately there's just such
the backlash.
It's really hard on them nowadays, And with social media, you get a guy like suddenly, you post the wrong thing, and suddenly Ricky Gervais is in Britain just blowing it up.
Yeah.
And they're getting hate mail and getting all sorts of stuff. I mean,
That's who got on Melissa.
It's a shame.
Yeah, Bachman.
Yeah.
He got on her, and I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah, it's a shame, and it's a shame because it really, these people are so misunderstood. And don't get me wrong, there's always people who represent themselves wrong,
Poorly,
poorly, and but it's a shame that people feel like that you get famous and you can't talk about this thing that's a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
And we should be proud.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
And if everybody did what, it's cool that you do that. Like, not only do you're open to talking about it, but you leaned all the way into it and got your own show and all that.
It's interesting too. So I'll tell you the flip side of that. I'm writing a book right now. In fact, the book is done, and I have an agent. And we're pitching this book to publishers right now, and the book is all about living life to the fullest. It's kind of an inspirational kind of book. Publishers I've been surprised at, because I've leaned so hard into that as part of my brand beyond the music. How many of them just said flat out no because they go to
because
my Instagram,
of that?
They go to my Instagram and see an animal on there. And I'm talking about respectful pictures of animals, and I'm out there harvesting my own meat and doing conservation work and building schools in Africa and all sorts of crap. They don't see that. All they see is the animal, and they just blanket no.
Here's the shame of that, though, is if more of the people that do hunt were like you and were open about it in other, that are in other industries, then that would not be such a negative thing considered across the board.
And what's interesting is the responses you get from them they're against hunting. They just don't even want to open that box because they don't know enough about it. And that's partly our own problem.
That tells me we have a lot of work to
That's
do.
what I was going to say. It's partly our own problem. We haven't done a good enough job of educating the non-hunting public about what most hunters do, because there's certainly, but it just takes a couple of bad ones to ruin it for everybody.
Well, there's bad lawyers and doctors
That's right.
and ministers. There's bad. I mean, you start looking. But stop looking at the bad. Look at the good.
Well, it's like
my gosh.
Every time I go travel somewhere, especially Mexico, I love going to Mexico, and I love hunting in Mexico. My dad goes, "Why would you want to go to Mexico? They're murdering people down there." I said,
"Well, they're murdering people here
I was
too."
like, Dad, they're murdering people in Minneapolis too. It's like it's really is. We get so caught up in what we see that we don't ever take time to actually think about what it is we're seeing. So. Somebody just sees that, they see that dead animal that and they don't know anything about me. They just immediately judge me because of it. And that's okay. That's not probably the publisher I want to work with anyway.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And there's going to be somebody that's out there fine. And I don't blame them. They're also trying to keep their business safe. And if that's for that, look, that's also
that.
God bless America. That's your right.
Okay, so what's the name of the book?
I can't tell you right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next podcast.
Yeah. Next podcast. Yeah, next podcast. I'm keeping all that a little more under the wraps for now. Yeah.
Well, good.
But it's all about, I'm really excited about it. And like I said, it's inspired by some conversations I had with my grandfathers on their deathbed, and just about trying to live your life where you try to minimize regret. Go out there and do it, because like you said, life's too short.
It is.
And the older you get, the more you realize it. I got a 14-year-old girl, and suddenly I feel like an old man, and I talked to my dad about it. My dad says, I'm just, I don't know. My dad's like, 65 or 70 years old, and he said, I'm just now starting to figure it out, he says.
Well, I'll tell you the other day, Johnny.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about life. It's like, when you're young, you think you got it all figured out. And then all of a sudden you realize, I really don't have it figured out. And I tell people, you just don't know who you are yet.
Yeah.
Well, he says it all the time.
And
He's like I'm still looking for what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and me both.
Yeah.
And now I'm old enough, and I've got enough life, behind me, and, raised a daughter and all this kind of stuff. And I'm starting to realize that, I'm 45 years old and I don't know a damn thing.
I know.
And that's scary and also kind of exciting in a way.
Yes.
It's like, it's really all in the eye of the beholder. For me, it's like,
It's a glass half full or half empty.
What do I got to go to do to find this enlightenment? You know what I mean? That find this thing where I maybe can live my life where I don't go to my deathbed with the kind of regrets that my grandfathers had. That's what the book's all about, and that's kind of how I'm living my life.
That's cool.
Very cool.
That's cool. Yeah. By the time this podcast goes up, because I don't know when it's going to go up, if we'll stay in touch with you, and if you'll tell us, then we'll put a little plug.
Put it on the screen.
It'll be a while.
Right here.
I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot. Just like the TV business, the publishing side, man, I realized I didn't know anything about it, and the wheels turn slow. Man, you think the wheels turn slow in music and in TV? Whew. I mean, it'll be 2 years before.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, we'll have this posted.
That's right. Yeah.
I would hope so.
Stay tuned, will you? Yeah, you can follow me online and follow that stuff, and stay tuned.
Tell everybody. So your show is on the Outdoor Channel.
Yep.
And you do some other stuff. Plug whatever you want. Tell everybody where they can find you and watch you. That
simple. It's Nick's Wild Ride on everything. All the socials,
everything. Instagram, Facebook.
And we just, finally, just now in the last few months, started being able to put some full episodes on YouTube and whatnot. So you can go there on YouTube and get a taste of it. And if you don't get Outdoor Channel, you can obviously get everything on My Outdoor TV. Mm-hmm. And like I said, Nick's Wild Ride on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. Please come join the ride.
Good. Yeah. Well, I got to ask, why are you just now being able to put them on YouTube?
No comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's one of those
that's a teaser for next podcast.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I'd love to come do this with you again sometime.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's good to finally get to hang out with you and chat with you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for all you're doing for the future of hunting.
Yeah.
Because I look at it, I think we really are trying to protect the future of hunting.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. Likewise. Thank you.
Nick, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and wrap
go ahead
this
and
up.
sign it up.
Oh, yeah. All right, everybody. So if you're out there watching, and if you're watching this in video form, all you got to do is wait till the end, and you'll find everywhere this podcast ends. If you're listening to this right now, we are on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and you can also go check out the description below as to other platforms that you can watch us on as well, because we're all over the place. But thank you very much, Nick, and we'll see you next time.
We're going to get outside because they've got these little jalapeno appetizer deals they're giving away, and it's like,
I found Nick. I was like, you want to do a podcast? He's like, yeah. And I walked up, and I unfortunately had to pull him away from his little jalapenos. He was super bummed.
I'm going to go buy those jalapenos. Thank y'all for watching. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.
People Who Hunt can be watched on Facebook and YouTube and listened to on all major platforms.